see Nancy Doub. I imagine there's a relationship. Nancy Doub, are you still here? Oh, coming, okay.
I'm Eric's mother and did witness his arrest. And the arrest of, I was the only person not arrested out of 6 people in his van. And I really want to talk, I want to tell you that I'm 65 and retired and haven't worked for years, but a couple of years. But previously, one of my jobs was a teaching assistant at public schools for many, many years, and also as a child care worker. And so I've been in the position of trying to manage crowds, people who aren't doing what I want them to do, maybe. And I'm very sympathetic, therefore, to the police, because I know what that's like and know what they were facing when they had to deal with this large rally. I think they did a good job, as we've already heard, for the most part, but at the end, things got really out of control, and there was very much unnecessary violence, and you know all that. But so I've been thinking, as a sympathetic person, you know, what went wrong? Why did they do things that way? And so I'm glad you're pursuing that too. One thing that occurred to me is that, I think I'll read this so I'll be faster. They might have acted the way they did at the end if the person ultimately might not have acted the way they did at the end if the person ultimately in charge of them had actually been at the scene and not getting orders from a distant command post, as we were told was happening. Because I was there at that famous corner 10 minutes before they let the tear gas go, and at that time everyone was obeying orders. You've heard all that, and doing the right thing. And I think it was a terrible misreading of the situation that could have only happened if people in command weren't there. There's no other way they could have thought, this is a crowd that needs control. Everyone was standing on the side and doing the right thing. But I was more intimately, of course, involved in the arrest at the Dairy Queen. And I think the one policeman there said it was a question of giving an order, giving time for compliance, and then having to follow up if the order isn't obeyed. But I've learned from my many years of working with kids that that's a pretty tricky business, because in that case you have to be very, very careful that you give the right order, you know, what kind of order you give, because you may be stuck with, you know, following up, enforcing something that really doesn't need to be enforced or so on. And my observation at the Dairy Center was that it was all over. We were going for ice cream. And everybody was just leaving and you know, just trying to get themselves together and get out of there. And they gave strange orders. First, don't go into the shopping center. Then they told someone else, oh, it's okay, you just go on in there. And then a minute later, they came into the Dairy Queen and said, everyone who's not buying something has to leave. The people who walked out of the Dairy Queen were then arrested for being on the sidewalk. It was just very irrational and
Nancy,
scary.
your time is up.
Oh, didn't get to the punchline. Well,